Good morning, everybody, or good evening. My name is Mounir, and I'm from the University of Michigan. I'm the Director of Admissions and Recruitment for the School for Environment and Sustainability. First of all, I would like to thank Education USA Pakistan for the hospitality, for allowing us to connect with students in Pakistan and in other places. And the purpose today is to really walk you through the decision-making process and what makes an application to an American university in general, more specifically to graduate education, what makes that application appealing, what makes you stand out. And so I will not be really saying anything that contradicts what your advisors are saying, and I will talk about that in detail when I start my presentation, my slides. You will see that a lot of the advice that you're getting from your Education USA advisor is something that we reinforce, basically. But my job today is to give you a little bit an insider perspective, and of course, be open to answering your questions about admission to graduate education in the United States. So if you give me just a second, I am sharing my screen, and we can start. Okay, so I'm assuming you can see my screen right now. So my name is Mounir, and I've been in your shoes as an international student, looking at the difficulties and the complications, really, of navigating the United States educational system, especially with complex international situations happening. So this is not really a great time, I have to say. So don't feel discouraged, because this happened before and things do change. And it's also not great internally in the US, as you might have heard, with lots of issues surrounding higher education. The importance of higher education is being put to question. But these are all things that are temporary, and we know that things will recover and be better in the future, hopefully, inshallah. So whatever advice I give you, it's advice that I've probably learned as from the perspective of an international student, of somebody who is foreign to the system, that try to make it into the system. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about my background or experiences. But the first thing I want to talk about is really examine the essential question of why consider graduate school. So it depends on your context. It depends on the educational system where you are. When I was applying for graduate school, I was still an undergraduate student in Morocco, and back then, the choice to go to graduate school was not one that was motivated by professional reasons or by generally like scientific inquiry motivations, if you will, but it was just a natural next step. You either go to a teacher's school or a trade school, or you find a job, and if none of the above is appealing to you or is available, you go to grad school, right? I don't know if it is the same in Pakistan, whether people go to grad school as a default choice, but in the US, it's really important for you to think about graduate school as a strategic decision, not as a default next step. And so some of the reasons you might have for wanting to pursue a graduate education might be like your desire to deepen your expertise in a specific field, right? And I'm sure you have great universities in Pakistan and great programs, and we see students from Pakistan doing really well when it comes to standardized testing, or they do well when they join American universities. So I don't think it is a question of trying to do better than what you're doing right now. It's just maybe what niche specializations are you looking for, what international exposure are you looking for. And so deepening your expertise in a specific field is a good reason to think about graduate school. Other things are related probably to figuring out how you can conduct advanced research and cross-pollinate with people from different other cultures and countries and experiences, and make sure that you have that collective knowledge that would help you develop your career and also help bring that experience to Pakistan and participate in the development of your country. Also, careers are becoming interconnected and more global. We're talking to you from Michigan, a very dark morning, and you're sitting in, probably you're enjoying a much better weather, probably in Pakistan, speaking to professionals as if I'm talking to them next door. And big thanks to Aman and to Noor Elaine and to everybody who helped make this happen. But we do talk to each other like colleagues. And this is testament that the global reach is real and that jobs are globalized. And therefore, it's a good idea to engage in an education experience that promotes your global reach. Building networks is also very important, especially research networks. If you are planning to pursue a PhD, then your mindset should be one that drives your connections with researchers and people in the same field. Developing transferable skills is also important, more than before, or more than ever, sorry. Education now is all about some soft and hard skills that are transferable, that are usable, and that are useful across the board. We're talking about data analytics is a big deal right now. Very soon, everybody will have to know something about artificial intelligence and machine learning and other modern skills that will allow you to excel whatever your choice of a career is. So ask yourself, is this something that you enjoy doing? Do you enjoy research? Do you enjoy working on solving complex problems? Are you passionate about your field? When you are at the bachelor's level, you are basically looking at breadth because you are examining a lot of things. Even you look at the course list from your transcripts and you'll see that you've done a lot, from the sciences, social sciences, and everything in between. However, when you go to grad school, your mission is to narrow that interest, which means you only have 2 years, in some cases 1 year, to gain enough knowledge to drive you towards a particular project or to help you access further study as a PhD student. So this is something that is also something you have to keep in mind. It is a financial and personal commitment, therefore strategic. It's a strategic decision. It's not a default next step, as we said before. There are many types of graduate school, as you probably know. There are ones you can finish in 1 to 2 years. Most likely, if you're looking for a solid master's degree program that is going to qualify you to do further research as a PhD student, it's probably going to be 2 years. But there are master's degrees that are online. There are master's degrees that are 1 year. They depend on kind of opus that you are pursuing. Some master's degrees would require you to do a project or a capstone. Others might require you to do a thesis, and others might give you options. In our case, all 3 options are available at University of Michigan School for the Environment and Sustainability. But we encourage students to do capstone because that's what the value is in terms of salaries, in terms of possibilities when you work. However, we understand that some students want to pursue a PhD program, and therefore they probably will be better served if they pursued a master's thesis with their supervisors. There are professional master's degrees that focus on getting you to a point of professional mastery without necessarily preparing you or having a PhD as a scope. In their scope, these would include things like MBAs, Masters of Public Health, Masters of Landscape Architecture, etc. These are practice-oriented and they are designed for specific careers. So if you are a landscape architect in Pakistan and you want to rub shoulders with some of the colleagues in the US and learn together, then that is certainly something that you could do without having necessarily to plan for a PhD. Doctoral study takes 4+ years. I know that in some countries, I don't know about the system in Pakistan, but in Morocco, for example, it used to be that once you're admitted to a PhD program, you would typically spend about 3 years, sometimes 4 years, but your entire focus would be working on your research project with your supervisor. In the US, things work out differently because you have to take at least a couple of years of courses to prepare you to do research. And therefore, most students would finish in at least 4 years. I've seen students finish in 5 and even 6 years. These degrees are research focused. A dissertation is required that you defend. Publications are also required. And a lot of PhD programs, and this is the good part about PhD programs in the US, if you manage to be admitted in one of these, there are very high chances that you would get a funding package, especially from good universities. There are always universities who want your money, who will charge for PhD programs, but the good schools usually fund students who are going for a PhD. There are also some professional doctorates. There are JD, Law, MD, PsyD, and these are practice focused as well. So your first task will be to narrow your program choice. And this could be something you do by basing yourself on what the information that you have. So looking at the admissions requirements, what it is that you can and you cannot provide. Sometimes you'll be looking at a program that requires a certain level or certain prerequisites that you might not have. So those can be discarded or can be removed. You could look also at the tests that they require, what prerequisites in general. But this is the program judging you. This is the program telling you what you can and cannot do. However, many of the criteria you'll be using are those where you have the choice, where you're the one who is making those decisions, including really looking at the program's strengths and structures. Not all programs are built the same way. Some programs are more rigorous than others. And so you get to choose which programs fit your profile and which programs would serve you better. There are some programs that might not be the most rigorous, but they might be doing it for you because they really fulfill that niche need that you have to transfer those skills immediately to the workplace. And then there are programs where you choose to go for a more rigorous, maybe lengthier program that would prepare you for what's coming next. So it is your choice and you're the judge when it comes to this. Faculty research and alignment. In the US, ranking is gaining a lot of popularity. Whatever university website you visit, there will always be rankings when they can be proud of those rankings. And so you get the Times higher education rankings, you get other rankings, international rankings, and sometimes people obsess over rankings and forget that you need to probably look at the program of study that you're looking for. And so you might have a university that's highly ranked in general, that's more recognizable. However, their journalism program or their chemistry program is not as great as one of the programs that you might find the university that does not seem to have the same rank. So rankings are not a science 100% of the time. Of course, they have their own criteria, etc., but they're not a reflection of your experience when you go to a certain program. There are some universities that rank maybe in the hundreds, and they have some really strong programs in some niche areas. So keep an eye on that. Funding availability is another one. What are your chances of having some sort of funding or assistance? Then location and campus cultures. Some of us like to go to urban campuses because they want to be in a big city. Others prefer to go to a small town environment and focus on their studies. Oftentimes, my advice here is to look at something that offers you both. By looking at a campus town that is small when you need it to be small, but also when you need the amenities of a bigger city, you have those options. In University of Michigan, personally, what I enjoy is that I live in Ann Arbor vicinity in a small town called Ypsilanti. I live 15 minutes away from work, but it feels small. it's not a big town. There isn't a lot of hustle and bustle. And however, if I wanted to go to a big city, Detroit is just 20 minutes away. And so you have all the options. And I know that many of us would like to have our halal food, our Ramadan traditions, and happy Ramadan, by the way, to everybody listening. So these things are important to us. So when you have that possibility to commute between a small university town and a bigger city nearby, I think that is a powerful combination right there. And then, of course, career outcomes and goals. Now, mentorship is really important too, because as we are now in a mentorship environment, right? You have your Education USA advisors who are imparting a lot of good information with you. You'll probably see a recording of this session, and you'll probably see announcements for a lot more events that you can attend at no cost to you. These are people who are working tirelessly to help you identify opportunities and pursue these opportunities without an agenda. So take advantage of these resources. Ask these people because they are experts and because their advice is what's going to get you the information that you need. So use them as mentors, guide your research direction, and then when you join a program, you obviously need to build very good relationships with your faculty so that you can lean on them to support you and to open opportunities for you. And this is one of the things that you see in American higher education, is that faculty members tend to give a lot of personal attention to students as mentors, and they would always provide you with opportunities to publish, opportunities to present, opportunities to go do conferences. They will fend for you, they will defend your interests. Understanding the application as a whole. So now we move on to what happens behind the scenes. And when you apply, and usually you've heard your Education USA advisors, you've been working for a very long time, getting the highest grades possible, you've honed in on a certain program. Now comes what the admissions office in the university of choice would see. They don't know you, they don't have that level of exposure to you, they don't necessarily have a very clear picture of who you are unless there is a connection, like emails back and forth. And so I would recommend that you get in touch with your admissions office early, and you don't need to spam them because people in admissions offices are really busy usually. But establishing that rapport and that connection is really important and is appreciated. So don't be afraid to introduce yourself, to say, I'm planning to apply, here are my interests, ask questions, ask for advice. That certainly helps. But when the admissions office is reviewing your application, they don't look at you. They don't look at Aman or Mounir or Yasser or Yassar. They look at a certain number of documents that hopefully would speak highly of you. Some of these are your academic statements, your personal statement, your letters of recommendation, your resume or CV, your transcript, test scores, and sometimes interviews if you have that opportunity to interview. So it's very important to make these application components work for you, not work against you. For example, when we present an academic statement, it's very important to pay attention to the details, to the prompt. From time to time, I see some very good applications and some applicants who are promising, but for some reason they do not pay attention to the prompts and they go on a tangent talking about something that's, yes, interesting, but it does not really address what we're looking for. And therefore that unnecessarily kind of costs them points when it comes to evaluations. So make sure you follow your prompt, make sure you understand why this is needed. An academic statement of purpose is generally an account of your background academically, why you want to join this program, and what is this program going to help you with after you graduate. So look at it from a temporal standpoint and from a narrative standpoint. So you present yourself academically, you develop arguments about why this degree program is important for me and what I can bring to this program. Sometimes culturally it's not accepted. Maybe I know that from when I was in Morocco, if you wrote and said, I am going to help you as a student, it's not culturally appropriate because the university is looked at, or the professors, who are you to help us, basically. This is not the same case here because it's a very different cultural context. You have to really try to tell us how your enrollment in the program is going to help raise the profile of the program and the institution. So don't be bashful. Personal statements are usually really tricky because this is your space to tell us more about yourself as an individual and how your personal trajectory is perhaps going to help you achieve your goals, or what are your motivations? Why do you specifically want to pursue this type of degree? Personal statements are usually some of the toughest ones, to be honest with you, because a lot of them are cliche. I wanted to be an engineer since I was 5 years old, and I can guarantee you that 90% of the applicants will say the same thing. So I'm not saying don't say that if it's true, if that's authentic to you. Of course, you should say that, but just try to stay away from things that are more like cliche, and bring that experience in a way that's creative. But usually the personal statement is not what's going to make an application or break it. However, you really want to make sure to look at the prompts and follow the instructions, because that's usually how they are reviewing your application. Those prompts are not just to help you write, they are also there to help people evaluate. So keep that in mind. The prompts are not for you only, they're for us as well. Your letters of recommendations are very tricky because this is the only, I think, part of your application that does not depend on you 100%, depends on somebody else saying something about you. So my advice is to connect with faculty members in your programs early. Don't wait until 2 weeks before the deadline to tell them about the recommendation. Connect with them early, ask them for advice, tell them where you're applying, and when you send them a request for a letter of recommendation, make sure that these people are going to support you. Don't put it on them as a task, but help them with the task. Many times, recommendation letter writers do not remember your background, do not know a lot about your program. Just because you attend a course with them and you do well doesn't mean that they know enough about you to be able to really write a strong recommendation letter on your behalf. That's why we have to help them a little bit with the homework. One way I would do this is to first, as I said, contact them early, send them emails, introduce yourself, and when you ask for a letter of recommendation, send them your CV, send them your accomplishment, remind them of a project you worked on together or something exceptional that you did in class. So basically you are almost helping them write it for you. And that really helps them first manage the load, because I would assume many of them have to write multiple letters. And second, it would remind them of some important work that you've done. A resume or CV is entirely up to you, but tailor it to the program. I know that some of us have ready resumes. If you are serious about the program you're applying to, similarly, if you're serious about the job you're applying to, your resume should really be tailored to that particular instance. So a single CV or a single resume cannot be relevant to, most of the time at least, to two different jobs. So you have to really customize your CV. Same thing for a degree program. If you're applying to school, people want to know, one, your academic background, a summary of it. Sometimes, especially with international applicants, you really want to go back and say, well, let me figure out what years or from which year to which year this student did what, and what was their performance, what was their grade, what kind of research project they worked on. Collecting this information from the transcript is possible, but it's not always easy. Therefore, make sure that that is clear on your CV. And also detail your experiences, starting with what is most relevant to the program that you are applying to. It doesn't have to be long, so 2 pages is more than enough. 2 pages are more than enough. I would not go above or beyond 2 pages. Transcripts, just make sure transcripts are delivered. I'm seeing more schools right now accept unofficial transcripts, and then when you're admitted to the program, then they require official transcripts. So yeah, keep an eye on that. You don't have to have official transcripts for all your applications. You can apply certainly with an unofficial transcript and then submit yours later. Make sure your transcripts are legible. Make sure when you scan them, if you scan them, that you try to read them first, that they're doing okay. If your transcript is protected as a PDF, make sure that it works on the application. So after you upload it, make sure you take a look at it and download it from the application system itself, because from time to time, especially documents that are encrypted in the US right now, I'm not sure about Pakistan, but in the US right now, most of the transcripts are delivered electronically, and all of them are encrypted through services like Parchment, and those can be tricky to upload to applications, so keep that in mind. If it's not working, the basic steps to do are print your transcript and scan them again. Sometimes some phones are very good at scanning, just make it look a little professional. No blurry pictures, no fake fingers on the transcript or furniture behind the transcript. That shows that you have given your application some attention. So I'm laughing because this is definitely not something we see every day. But from time to time, yeah, you see some student here and there use their phone to take not so great pictures of their transcripts, and it becomes very hard to evaluate that application. One thing, if you walk away with anything from this presentation, walk away with this. The admissions counselors are going to do everything in their power to read your application and give it a fair shake. There is always that fear that people are just going to see the application and like toss it aside, or they see anything they don't like and they just don't read it. That does not happen. Usually it's the other way around. They want to give students the chances as much as possible. Now, test scores, sometimes you're required to test and test again, which is annoying. I don't know if EducationUSA environment in Pakistan offers testing as well, but please inquire. And if you need your TOEFL or your GRE or other tests, please take them. I would say that more universities right now are doing away with the GRE requirement or GMAT requirement. So make sure to check the requirements for your programs. And then some programs would offer interviews. When you write your essays and when you draft your application materials, if you are not on a different planet these days, you would know that AI is there to help you. It is a fact of life. It's there. Students will use it. And so I don't think it's a matter of whether you should use AI or not use AI. I think it's entirely up to you. But what kind of AI use would be considered ethical and proper, and what is not going to be considered ethical? And honestly, we are at the beginning of this, so every university treats this question differently. You might attend another session by a different university and they would tell you, do not use AI. We basically know that you're going to use AI. And so our instructions are that you can use AI to help you polish the language a little bit, make sure that there are no grammar or spelling mistakes. So using it as a spell check is perfectly acceptable. If you need a little bit of brainstorming to help guide you with structure or things like that, not a big deal. And sometimes you have a word or a sentence that you probably know in Urdu, but in English is just not there yet, or it's giving you a hard time on a Ramadan day when you've spent 10 hours fasting. It's okay to run that through AI to just give you a little bit of a break. But what you can't use AI for is to write for you, take over your voice, come up with the ideas, or translate large essays or passages for you. So this is where we draw the line. However, you really must look at your institution. If you're applying to our school, this is what you need to look for. If you're applying to another school, I would highly recommend that you look at their own instructions and abide by them. Now, in terms of tests, again, I think I covered that. Interviews, if you are invited into an interview, and this is not very common to be honest, but if you are, just prepare. Make sure that you use your academic statement of purpose as a basis for the interview. Because of all the application materials, that's the one that narratively articulates where you're coming from, why you think you want to be in this program, and what you're going to do with the program later. Do your research, do your homework. Don't show up to an interview without spending some time looking at the program, looking at the faculty, reading their research profiles, looking at some of the titles of the publications they have done. Know who you are interviewing with, what their backgrounds are. Sometimes it's an admissions interview where the person is just asking about, trying to check whether the communication flow is there. With international applicants, sometimes American universities have that anxiety of admitting somebody purely on paper, and then when they start studying, they find out that there is like communication breakdowns, or the student is not really able to interact properly using the language or things like that, so they don't want surprises. However, if you're doing a PhD or an advanced degree program, a lot of interviews are meant to really look at your interests and discuss your projects. So be prepared for those. Ask thoughtful questions. Very often at the end of the interview panel or the person interviewing you is going to give you an opportunity to ask your own questions. Have questions ready. Not having questions is a missed opportunity. And at least show that you know the program. So ask some questions. And once the interview is over, follow up professionally, very short email, thank people for the interview and say that you're available to answer any more questions that they have. Don't include anything else. Don't try to influence their decision in any way. Just be respectful, be quick and brief, and just say thank you and make yourself available for further questions. Some of the common graduate school assumptions are that you need a master's degree to get a PhD. I would say not necessarily. However, most of the times you need a master's degree to get a PhD. For example, in our school, we don't require a master's degree. However, maybe during the time I was here, maybe one person was admitted with a bachelor's degree, but they had a lot of professional experience and they have a lot of publications. So in that case, maybe. But if you don't have publications and you don't have an academic, let's say, track record to back your application, most of the time the programs are going to opt for a student with a master's degree. So the safest way is, if you want a PhD, start with a master's degree. That's going to get you the attention, but it doesn't mean that you can't apply with a bachelor's degree. Graduate school is unaffordable. This is an interesting question. It can be unaffordable, and it's not only unaffordable for international students, it's unaffordable for American students. A lot of students graduate with piles and piles of student debt. One of the things I was always grateful for is, because I did my education up to the master's level in Morocco before working internationally, is that it is a bare bones education. You have a class and you have a professor and you have the materials, but that's it. You don't have the fancy classrooms or the facilities. You don't have the fancy football. You don't have the fancy housing, the fancy campus, the fancy stadiums, or even sometimes you were limited in resources. However, a big advantage was that it was free. And so, although we complained, because we complained about equality here, we complained about not having this or that, but at the end of the day, you graduate with a degree program without debt. And American students are really struggling with that. You have students graduating with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt that they can't pay back because it accumulates interest and interest and interest. So it is a really tough situation, not only for international students, but for American students too. So evaluate that. What I would do is first start looking at resources available to you in your country. I had the chance once to do have a Fulbright grant. So if you have Fulbright grants in Pakistan, that might be a really good way to fund your education. Something that gives you the opportunity to get a degree or participate in a program at no cost to you. And sometimes they come with some special requirements that you have to fulfill. Some people can't afford to go to the US and do their schools. Some people need scholarships. So master's degree programs will usually not cover the entire cost of tuition. Sometimes they have partial merit scholarships. In our case, we offer merit funding for a maximum of 1 semester. So that's not nearly enough to cover your degree, but some other schools are able to offer you. But if you are a PhD student at University of Michigan, you get guaranteed funding for 5 years. So it depends from school to school, so you have to navigate that reality depending on the data that you have. PhD holders only become professors. PhD degrees prepare you for research and prepare you for knowledge generation in a particular subject. So that kind of works well in academia, and therefore a lot of PhD holders do work in academia. However, the skill set, the research skills are also required in industry, and therefore you see a lot of people with PhDs working in the private sector, nonprofit sector, etc. I would say it's too early to think about graduate school. I think we covered that. Large universities are impersonal. That is not true, so keep that in mind as well. Some students prefer small colleges because they feel that a small community would be more intimate, but large universities are just as personal, and they usually have a lot more capacity to serve students with diverse needs. If you are neurodivergent, if you are a minority, if you are a religious minority, if you have specific dietary requirements, a big university will probably have many people like you, and therefore you will always find a place where you belong. A small university or college might not have that, and so it will be your responsibility to set up your experience a little bit. So I would say I would always prefer a large university because there's always a chance you will find a community as opposed to a smaller school. But smaller schools also deliver a lot of value. So I'm going to stop here for just a moment. I think we are still doing good on time, and I'm going to just look at the Q&A and see if I can answer some questions before moving to the next segment. Thank you, Malik. I have already master's in public administration, but not research-based. I want to pursue my PhD. Can I go for another research-based master's from the US? Yeah, absolutely. You certainly can. You also can check if your master's degree would qualify you to apply for a PhD. Again, as I said, some people can apply for PhD programs with a bachelor's degree. So if you have a Master of Public Administration, my gut feeling is that you will find some PhD programs who would accept your degree. I would start with schools that are affiliated under public administration organizations. I think NASPA, if I'm not mistaken, and other organizations You just go to those and look at the schools affiliated with them, and then you can have that answer. But absolutely, you can certainly apply for another master's if you decide. Can you please share information about universities that are offering fully funded scholarships? I really don't have that information, honestly. The best way to do that is to do your own research, and it's not very hard to do that. So please do your research. So deadline for Fulbright 2026 is April 1st. If GRE is scheduled 15 April, is it acceptable? How many days after submission of the complete Fulbright application GRE is mandatory? I'm not sure, to be honest. Maybe this is a question for our EducationUSA friends. But in terms of application deadlines, usually you need to ask the institutions you are inquiring about, and usually they will have an answer for you. So I think this one is more for our EducationUSA colleagues. Can anyone from industry be in a recommendation letter with no research? This is actually a really good question, Fatima, and what I would say is it depends. So that's why you really need to look at the requirements of each of the universities you're applying to. In our case, for example, so if you're applying for a master's degree in sustainability, we at our school, we do accept recommendation letters from industry, like from your supervisors, from people you collaborated with. But we would always want you to submit at least one academic letter of recommendation. If you have been employed, or if your degree dates to prior to 2023, we wouldn't require you to submit an academic letter of reference, but that's just us. So it depends on the school that you're applying to. All right, so I believe we covered all those with the exception of the Fulbright deadlines. I think that's a very specific question right there. And before I continue, I'm just going to look at chat too. Please, if you have questions, use the Q&A feature. That makes them easier to track. I want to apply in 3 different programs, 3 different universities. They're all loosely connected. Is there any advice on how I can connect my SOP? Yeah, sure. Again, it really depends, because sometimes, especially when you're doing a Fulbright program, and we've had a couple of Fulbright applicants, the Fulbright Commission sends us the essay. So you follow their instructions, and then they send us the entire application. And that is okay. We would love to have Fulbright grantees, naturally. It's a prestigious program, and I wish you the best of luck, all of you, in qualifying for that program. And so if the setup is such that you apply to the Fulbright Commission, and then they are the ones who contact the schools on your behalf, then you need to follow their instructions. So it's perfectly fine for you to use one SOP, and they would be sending it around. We understand that the essay is not going to be 100% tailored to us, because we know how the Fulbright Commission works, and therefore it's okay. So the answer to that is yes. So Waqar, 6 years of academic experience, extensive archaeological field experience. I'm hoping to apply for a PhD program. How to go about the application? This is fantastic. So I would certainly start searching for programs that fit your academic profile. I would start with faculty members. So here's one thing that's different about PhDs. Your PhD admission, your PhD funding is going to be largely dependent on the relationship you built with the faculty member. In admissions, yes, you're going to submit an application. We are going to look at your application. But if there is nothing like serious or a really big red flag, it's not going to matter that much, because once the faculty member decides that they want to work with you, you certainly will have a lot of chances of getting admitted and also of getting funding. So the strategy, Waqar, is to Look for faculty members who do the same. Look for faculty members, we're all coming to this with an agenda. Let me be very clear. When you look at graduate education, you want something for you, but the faculty also want something for them. So it is a mutually beneficial relationship. So when a faculty member sees that you have the potential to learn from them, to publish, to increase your academic profile, they're usually excited about you, but also they will prioritize people who can increase the academic profile of the program. So if there are instances where you can collaborate with faculty members on research, where they see that you're going to open doors for them just as much as they're going to open doors for you, this mutually beneficial relationship would almost always result in positive outcomes. And so focus on faculty, look for all the faculty members in the schools of your choice and reach out to them and try to establish that contact. Share your expertise, share your publications, share your work, and ask if they would be interested in pursuing a project where they would work with you on an archaeological work in Pakistan. A lot of faculty members will be excited to tap into your network to expand what they do for research, especially if somebody is already doing work in Pakistan or in neighboring countries. That person might be more interested in what you have to offer. So think of it as a mutually beneficial relationship and start talking to faculty as soon as possible. That would be my advice to you. All right. These are all the questions we have, and I have about 10 minutes to go over an example. So look at University of Michigan and think of it as an example of an institution that you might or might not want to be part of. And I will tell you a little bit, I will kind of reinforce some of the things that we discussed earlier as we look at the profile of this university. So first, rankings, right? So we want to look at a university that has decent, good rankings. Again, don't obsess with rankings because it depends. You can go to a university that is top in the nation, but they don't have a good archaeology program, for example. And you might find a university that's ranked 100 or 200 that has one of the top archaeology programs in the nation. So you should focus on the program, not on the overall ranking of the university. But looking at rankings kind of gives you an idea whether this university offers a good academic environment or not. So they are indicative of something, just don't obsess over them. Look at the environment as well. So Ann Arbor is a really nice small town that has all the amenities that you want, but it's not a really busy city. If you need to go to a busy city, then it is just 20 minutes away, and so that is another thing you look for when you try to find the university of your choice. Look at the programs. In our case, as I said before, we offer Masters of Science in multiple specializations, but all under the Environment and Sustainability umbrella. We have programs for the social scientists, we have programs for the advocates, we have programs for the engineers, and we have programs for the hard scientists. So whether you're interested in behavior, education, communication, environmental justice, environmental catastrophes, or problems like global warming affect populations differently. Privileged people get to be affected a little bit less. Underprivileged communities, rural communities, people who live in a situation of poverty are usually affected in higher and disproportionately higher levels. Masters of Policy and Planning, Ecosystem Science Management or Conservation Ecology, Geospatial Data Science for the data and GDS professionals among you, Sustainability and Development that works in the intersection of sustainability science and international development, and Sustainable Systems for those engineers and people who want to look at to solve problems as systems. So look at the programs. That's the key arena. Now, if I go back to this slide, what would be an advantage of choosing a program like this? I would say the ecosystem. So there are lots of schools that offer environment and sustainability programs, but usually you'll find a program in geospatial data science or a program in sustainable systems. But almost never will you find, with the exception of our program, will you find a school that offers 8 specializations that are all working with one another. I am a social scientist, for example, and I prefer to work on education. But there is a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, a peer of mine, who is an expert in geospatial data science, and we can sit together and work on a project that maps schools in any country and look at the location and look at how the environment or how climate change is affecting, let's say, educational institutions in a specific country. Or use sustainable systems methods to introduce them in the classroom to excite people about environments and sustainability and change in behaviors. So multiple specializations within the same domain, especially when they're strong, especially when you have faculty members who are leaders in their fields, will always constitute a very good environment for you. So I would personally choose a program like this over a program that's, from a similarly prestigious university, but only has like one niche specialization, because I know I'm going to get a lot more from this one. We also have a program in landscape architecture. For programs like this, I would highly look at the conditions of accreditation in Pakistan, because as a landscape architect in the US, you have to have a certain accreditation to work, to practice, and you gain that through either undergraduate or graduate education. Some master's degrees give you accreditation, some of them don't, and so you have to be very careful. If you have a bachelor's degree and you're already accredited and you're already a landscape architect, maybe you want a 2-year master's degree in landscape architecture because you don't need the accreditation. However, if you do not have the accreditation, you really want a master's degree that offers you the accreditation, and those would most likely be a 3-year program. So this is something else that you need to worry about. Customizable programs, absolutely. So a program that is limited in scope, that would only tell you you have to take these courses to graduate, is one I probably wouldn't pick if I find a program that gives me more flexibility. In our case, students can certainly do more than one specialization. Most students graduate with more than one without losing any time, because the programs can work with one another. So you have students doing ecosystem management, science management, and at the same time add the environmental justice specialization. So look for environments where you can maximize value, because you're going to spend a number of months anyway, you're going to pay a certain amount of money, or you're going to use your scope. Anyways, you are already there. And so really maximizing on your experience becomes primordial, because that is the value that you're taking. We also have students who do dual degree programs. In cases, for example, we looked at a colleague, a peer, who is interested in or who has background in public policy. If you have that interest and you also want to kind of combine that with a master's degree in sustainability, say, for example, sustainable systems, you can take a master's degree at SEAS and also apply for a master's degree at the Ford School of Government, and basically have 2 master's degrees, one in sustainability and one in public policy, and you can complete both in about 2.5 years. So instead of doing that in 3 or 4 years, you're really gaining so much time and you're graduating with 2 degrees. So look for places or schools where you can maximize that value. That would be my advice. Some of us like to have experience outside the classroom, either working on ecology, solving problems, solving business problems. So that is another factor. You should really look for programs that give you these opportunities. And also global reach. I would say, respectful, inclusive global reach, because unfortunately, some universities or some academic practices in the past have come from a place of white saviorism, where it's usually the Western culture comes to the Eastern culture to help it solve the problems, which is a very old, archaic way of thinking. So if you are interested in global reach, just make sure that faculty members look at this dynamic as one of equal partners, not as West helps the East. It's also East helps the West. So, and that's certainly something that we look for. Dynamic community, looking at student organizations. Again, this is where bigger university might be helpful. When I started working at University of Michigan, if you remember, there was this comet that became visible in the sky, and it only comes around here about once every 50,000 years. And so I was like, wow, I wonder if there's a place here I can go and watch it. And my supervisor then looked at me and she's like, I'm sure there is a place. And she went and looked and she sent me a club who actually are doing that. And so you go there and you find these people with their telescopes, their astronomers, with pizza and drinks, Coke, and we're all sitting there watching and doing this, and it was really fantastic. People you've never met in your life who are happy to have you share their passion. So a university community is really one of the best communities you're going to have in your life, and you really have to take advantage of that once you are in university. And those of us who have been in university and left, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So take advantage of the community and also the graduate community. I've been contacted a couple of times, and those of you who are going to be Fulbright graduates will know that there is a Fulbright community, and people I've never met in my life, but I am part of the network. You will also be part of your university's network, whether University of Michigan or another university. In our case, we have the largest live-in alumni base in any environmental school in the US. And we are the first school to start environmental justice as a master's degree. So there's a lot of tradition built into the school, and there are 13,000 plus people who are all around the world. You will have somebody in Pakistan, I'm sure. You will have somebody maybe within 10 minutes if you are in Islamabad or Karachi or Lahore. You will find somebody who's been to University of Michigan who is part of the community who can provide you with help and advice. There are meetups. People do activities together. People travel together. So it is a really strong community that you need to keep in mind when going to school. And of course, you're looking at employment services, which universities will offer you the best career advice. Make sure you use that, because we all know that some students can spend 2 years go by very fast if you're doing a master's degree. And so really making sure that you take advantage of your time, talk to everybody, talk to people who are specialized in career development and experiential learning, because they will help you get your next job. When things stabilize in the US, so far there's a lot of unknowns, but things will come back to normal. Our programs are all designated as STEM programs, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And these allow students to do what we call OPT programs, which means that you can stay in the US after graduation for up to 3 years if this is a STEM degree program. Currently, there's a mess, so we don't know what's going to happen, but it will come back, I'm sure. That allows you to spend more time and gain more knowledge so that you are more rounded, well-rounded graduate. So keep that in mind as well. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm going to use 1 minute probably to go over some of these questions that have come since we last looked. Okay. All right, so Waqar, thank you for that response. And yes, your question would probably be better asked, better kind of directed to the Fulbright Commission in Pakistan. I am not really sure, but usually they provide mentorship, especially Education USA graduates, advisors. Can we apply for a dual degree program through our Fulbright program as well? Again, this is another question for the Fulbright program, because I know that with Fulbright programs, there are restrictions on the number of semesters. There are also, negotiations that can happen. So what I would say is ask. Don't be disheartened if the initial answer is no. Probably it will be no, because they want you to go for a definitive number of semester, because they have budgeting to do. They need to really know that they're using their budget appropriately. They also need to spread that money around a little bit. So if they pay for 5 semesters for you or 6 semesters, that's 2 semesters that they are not giving somebody else. So don't be disheartened or surprised if they say no. However, keep in touch and communicate. Try to convince them to show that I am going to be a much better landscape architect, or I'm going to be a better ecologist if I do this, and this is going to help my country with so and so and so. And sometimes they will say yes. So it doesn't hurt to ask, but just don't be heartbroken if they say no, because they're trying really to provide funding to as many students as possible. All right, so your iftar is happening right now. This is a really good way to stop. I'm sure our Education USA friends will be communicating all of this with you. Please enjoy your iftar. This is very early for us. We just finished Sahur. So, all right, well, thank you very much, everybody. And I'm sure Education USA will have the recording available to you. Please feel free to reach out. If you go to University of Michigan, you can find my email under the School for Environment and Sustainability. Khansa is asking me to answer other question in chat. Can we apply for dual degree? So we already answered that one. Okay, I want to apply in 3 different programs in 2 different universities. All programs are loosely connected to design. Is there advice from me? I've already answered this one. Am I missing something, Khansa? All right, let me see. Q&A tab. Okay, because I'm the one who asked you to go to the Q&A tab. Apologies. How can I effectively mention being inspired by architect designer's name, work on my SOP, highlighting what specific aspects I'd like to explore, and even if it doesn't belong to America specifically? It is not going to be a problem. Usually, especially in matters of design and architecture, American schools usually are inspired by international design. And so coming from a different cultural environment and a different design tradition is not going to work against you. It's going to work for you. So submit your portfolio. Usually that's the best place to highlight your expertise. I don't know if you're going to be required to submit a portfolio, but submit it anyway. So even if they don't require it, work on your portfolio, Khansa, and send it. So that's basically the best ambassador when it comes to design. That's what's going to show what you would like to explore. Rabia, Zainab, what kind of student do you prefer? Is there any special feature, talent, characteristic? It's the full student profile, Rabia. It's not really one specific characteristic, but generally speaking, we're looking for somebody who is strong academically, and that is demonstrated through your statement of purpose, through your resume, through your transcripts, through your letters of recommendation, but also somebody who really is humble, wants to explore new things. It's not bad to show some vulnerability and say, well, I'm very good at this, but I need to work on this. That all really looks fine and even elevates your profile. So that's how you can, by really working on your the aspects of your application. You're most welcome, Khansa. 2.6 GPA in mathematics, 10 years of study. I mean, Java experience. I'm not been can I get admission to MS Business Analytics? Again, it depends on the school. 2.6, it's not a. Generally speaking, schools are looking for 3.0 and above, which is usually a B band in the US. But I have seen students be admitted with 2.6. So I wouldn't lose hope. You just need to really work with a much larger number of schools. And look for schools that you know are not going to be particularly competitive to get into, but ones that have schools that are not. So you can navigate your way through this. Start with the school that will take you, and then once you're there, you can definitely transfer into a much better school with a new transcript showing that you can do the work. So it's not a one-way street. You can, of course, customize your education. I think this is it. Yeah, so thank you very much, everybody. Wishing you a blessed rest of Ramadan and enjoy your iftar, and looking forward to connecting with you soon. Take care.